Read this? You. Carlton Drake's voice cut through the quiet hum of the cafe, his polished loafer slamming down the thick merger contract on the counter. His tone wasn't just dismissive, it was surgical. Heads turned. Forks paused midair. Even the espresso machine behind the bar hissed and then fell silent. Nia Harper, the 21-year-old waitress standing opposite him, didn't blink. She simply looked at the contract he was daring her to decipher. Her name tag glinted under the hanging light, her hands still smelling faintly of lemon cleaner and syrup from the booth she'd just wiped down. She wore a plain burgundy apron, her curls pinned back loosely, and her sneakers scuffed from double shifts. Her fingers hovered near the packet, thick with legalese most Harvard grads wouldn't touch without coffee and a partner's guidance. But Carlton didn't know that. He only saw her skin, her age, and the tray she just set down. He saw service, not substance. She didn't pick up the paper right away. Instead, she calmly asked, "Is this the final draft?" Carlton smirked. "Does it matter?" "A lot, actually," she replied. Small words make big differences. The cafe, modestly tucked in the heart of Briarbank, was not where billionaires usually licked their wounds. But Carlton had come here to think, away from the cameras and conference rooms of his glass empire. The deal in question, a global tech merger worth $3.2 billion, was unraveling fast and he needed mental clarity. He hadn't expected to be challenged by a waitress. Certainly not this waitress. "Go ahead then," he sneered. "Show me how far that GED of yours goes." Nia exhaled slowly, pulled a chair from behind the counter and sat. By now, a small silence had settled around them, punctuated only by the clinking of dishes in the kitchen. Nia opened the document. Her eyes moved quickly, efficiently, lips pursed in thought. Carlton's mocking smirk began to fade. She turned to page 1 and pointed with the edge of her fingernail. "This clause here, Section 1B under fiduciary oversight, it references Schedule D, but Schedule D doesn't exist in your appendix." Carlton blinked. "What?" "You heard me," she said, tone even. "You just authorized a transaction with a phantom clause." His face paled. Nia flipped forward, revealing more discrepancies. "See here, Schedule F outlines arbitration terms, but it also gives unilateral exit rights to Paradigm Holdings if there's a conflict of interest in asset absorption. That includes a dip in market trust, which you just triggered by announcing this deal prematurely." Carlton's jaw tensed. His legal team had combed through this contract for weeks. "How do you know that?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "I read," Nia said, her eyes locked on his. "And I used to write policy briefs before I poured coffee for a living." Carlton leaned in, eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" he asked, the bravado slipping from his voice. "Someone who used to sit in the back row of Dr. Liscombe's policy drafting class at Columbia," Nia said without looking up. "Until my scholarship was revoked." She flipped to another page and circled a clause. "Also this non-compete clause? It's void in 3 of your operating regions, France, Ontario, and parts of Brazil. It was enforceable in the draft from 2 months ago. Not anymore." Carlton's breath caught. His firm had spent 6 figures to build this agreement, and she was unraveling it before finishing her shift. The cook peeked through the service window, eyes darting between them. Nia didn't care about the attention. She tapped the contract again, this time with more force. "You were set up. Paradigm's legal team knew you wouldn't catch these things buried in cross-reference schedules. They're hedging their exit while positioning for market control if this deal collapses." Carlton sat back, stunned. "You're telling me my own lawyers missed this?" Nia finally looked up. "No, I'm saying they weren't paid to look too hard." She pushed the papers toward him. "You've got about 72 hours before Paradigm pulls out and blames you." Carlton stared at her, the sound of the cafe fading into static. He was used to dominating rooms, not being schooled in them. Especially not by a waitress half his age in a cafe with chipped mugs and sticky booths. But her precision wasn't arrogance, it was earned. "What did you say your name was?" he asked. "I didn't," she replied, wiping her hands on a dish towel and standing. "But it's Nia. Nia Harper." She turned away and began stacking coffee cups from a nearby table like nothing had happened. Carlton watched her, bewildered. That night, Carlton didn't return to his penthouse in Midtown. He drove in silence for hours, then parked near Piedmont Park and just sat. Nia Harper. He Googled the name but came up empty. No LinkedIn, no published papers, no legal certifications. She was a ghost in the corporate world. But the things she spotted, the phantom clause, the exit strategy, the non-compete loopholes, they were real. And devastating. His team hadn't found them. He pulled up the contract on his phone, scrolling to the first clause she'd flagged. There it was, Schedule D. No definition. No content. The next morning, Carlton strode into the downtown office of Westbridge Legal Partners, his internal counsel, like a man walking into a fire. Who inserted the Schedule D reference? He barked. His senior counsel, a pale woman named Layla Stern, flipped through the latest draft. We assumed it was included in Paradigm's master documents. Their GC assured us. Did you check? Carlton snapped. Did anyone in this building check? Silence. Find out who drafted the clause. I want the original metadata and timestamps. Today. He slammed the folder down. And while you're at it, someone get me everything we have on Nia Harper. Back at the cafe, Nia wiped down the counter, her thoughts half-focused. She hadn't meant to cause a scene. But the way Carlton tossed that contract, like she was decoration not a person, it triggered something deep. She'd spent years training her mind to notice patterns, scan for precision, and decode hidden motives in documents. Now all she had to show for it was a crumpled college rejection letter and a life reduced to tips. As she emptied the coffee pot, her coworker Zadie leaned in. Who was that guy yesterday? Nia shrugged. Just another man who thought I was invisible. At Westbridge Legal, Layla Stern stared at the search results. You're not going to believe this, she muttered, calling Carlton. That girl? Nia Harper? She was on Columbia's pre-law fast-track honors list 3 years ago. Published 2 policy papers before age 20. Then, nothing. She vanished. Carlton tapped his fingers against the glass. Vanished how? She dropped out. No formal withdrawal. No explanation. Find out why, he said. And find out if she still wants in. Layla paused. You want to hire her? Carlton looked out the window. I think she's the only one who actually read the damn contract. Meanwhile, Nia spent her lunch break behind the cafe, her back against the brick wall, eyes scanning her old notes on her phone. She still had them, screenshots of case law, bookmarked PDFs, and a few audio recordings from lectures she loved. One file, Property Law Sloan.mp3, she played sometimes just to remember what it felt like to be in a classroom. Her dream hadn't died. It had been boxed up and shelved. Now, someone powerful knew what she was capable of. That scared her more than being underestimated ever did. Carlton returned to the cafe that evening, dressed more casually than before. No tie, sleeves rolled. He looked around and when he saw her, he didn't smirk. He approached quietly, respectfully. Miss Harper, he said. Mind if I sit? Nia raised a brow. It's a free country. But I'm on the clock. He sat anyway. I owe you an apology, and a thank you. You saved my company from walking off a cliff. She nodded slowly. Glad you listened. Most don't. Carlton leaned forward. I looked into your background. You should be somewhere else, not bussing tables. Nia narrowed her eyes. You think I don't know that? She said coolly. I was headed somewhere, before my mother's medical bills came faster than the scholarships. Before Columbia froze my registration over $3,800 I didn't have. Carlton didn't flinch. Then let me make you an offer. Nia crossed her arms. What kind of offer? He slid a small envelope across the table. Not charity. Opportunity. I want you on my legal innovation team, immediately. Salary, benefits, full support to re-enroll if you choose. But more importantly, I want your brain in the room. Nia stared at the envelope for a long second, unsure if it was real or a test. What's the catch? She asked finally. Carlton didn't blink. No catch. Just don't hold back. She slid the envelope into her apron, lips tight. I don't need saving. I know, he said. But maybe you deserve a door that opens for once. He stood, smoothing his shirt. Think about it. Monday. 9 a.m. 47th floor. Walk in or don't. That choice is yours. Then he walked out, leaving the cafe's door swinging behind him like a decision waiting to be made. That weekend, Nia sat at the kitchen table in her mother's tiny apartment, the envelope unopened beside her tea. Her mom dozed in the recliner, oxygen tube fluttering with each slow breath. Medical bills were stacked beside an empty pill bottle. Nia stared at the numbers until her vision blurred. She wanted more than survival. She wanted impact, change, respect. She looked down at her chipped nails, her apron folded over the chair, and then at the envelope again. Slowly, deliberately she opened it. A contract signed. Title: Associate Director of Strategic Legal Operations. Monday morning, Nia stood outside the steel glass fortress that was Carlton Drake International. She wore her best thrifted blazer, pressed jeans, and a button-up blouse she'd borrowed from Zadie. Her curls were pulled into a neat bun, her shoes polished to hide their age. As she passed through the lobby, security stopped her twice, once to verify her ID, again to double-check her name. "They always do that," she muttered. The receptionist blinked at her badge. "You're the new legal advisor?" "You can say it out loud," Nia replied. "I won't disappear." The elevator doors opened on the 47th floor, revealing a corridor lined with glass walls and chrome accents. Carlton waited near the end, dressed sharp again, but with a tension in his posture. "Welcome," he said, gesturing toward the open space. "We'll get you set up here." A few heads turned as she entered. Whispered voices. Curious glances. One man, late 30s with a sleek tablet, didn't hide his stare. "You lost?" he asked. "This isn't HR." Nia gave a calm smile. "Neither is the legal department. But don't worry, I know what I'm doing." Carlton didn't intervene. He let the moment hang. Let them see who had his backing. "This is Nia Harper," he said. "She flagged $1 billion flaw in our Paradigm deal that none of us caught. She's not here to fetch coffee. She's here to lead." The silence was sudden and sharp. Even the man with the tablet blinked. Nia nodded once. "Glad we're clear." She sat at her new desk, cracked open a folder, and began taking notes before anyone could ask another question. The room had just met their new reality, and she didn't wait for permission to own it. By Thursday, Nia was elbows deep in a digital maze of contractual archives. Carlton had assigned her to audit the framework of a high-stakes partnership with Waitress Biotech, one his board was preparing to vote on. She noticed something odd. Language buried deep in Appendix C that shifted indemnity risk entirely to Carlton's firm if any product defect occurred post-merger. It was buried beneath 3 layers of cross-referenced subsections. Classic misdirection. When she flagged it in her report, Carlton's jaw tightened. "That wasn't in the version I signed off on." Nia nodded. "It was slid in during final markup." The moment her report circulated, a quiet storm began brewing. Emails stopped getting returned. Meeting invites were mysteriously revoked. People passed her in the hall without eye contact. One particularly sharp email came from the firm's general counsel, Damian Crane. "Your interpretation of contractual intent lacks appropriate legal certification. Please refrain from editorializing sensitive documents until formally cleared." Nia read it twice, then read it again. His language wasn't defensive. It was warning her off. She printed it, slid it in a folder labeled watch list, and kept working. Later that day, Carlton called her into his office. He shut the door, face stern. "I need you to be careful," he said. "You're stepping on toes." Nia tilted her head. "So, tell me, do you want accurate eyes or obedient ones?" He sighed. "I want truth. But this place, it has layers. Damien's old school. He's protected a lot of deals for this company." "Including bad ones?" Nia asked. "That's not the point." "That's exactly the point," she said. "If we're going to change the culture here, we can't do it halfway." Carlton rubbed his temples. After the meeting, Nia returned to her desk and found her login credentials revoked. Again. This was the second time that week. IT claimed it was a system error, but the pattern was too precise. The same thing had happened when she flagged the merger loophole. She turned to the junior paralegal seated nearby. "How often do people get locked out like this?" He blinked. "Never." "Thought so," she murmured. She grabbed her tablet, logged into the backup server, and resumed her review, offline. If someone wanted her out, they'd have to work harder. That evening she stayed late, alone on the 47th floor. The skyline shimmered through the tall windows, and the city buzzed far below. She reviewed one final clause in the Waitress deal. Her eyes widened. "Oh no," she whispered. This wasn't just bad indemnity language, it was a structured exit strategy favoring Waitress if the FDA delayed approval. They'd retain intellectual property but forfeit liability. If implemented, Carlton's firm would take the fall and the debt. She reached for her phone. "Carlton," she said when he answered. "You need to see this. Tonight." Carlton arrived within 30 minutes, tie loosened, eyes wary. Nia stood by the whiteboard, having already mapped out the entire clause chain like a crime scene. Clause 14C leads to subsection G, which references Schedule Y, buried in the back. That's where they inserted the liability exchange, she explained. Carlton read the highlighted text. His brows furrowed deeper with each line. "They set me up. Waitress gets the tech. You eat the lawsuits if the product fails clinical trials," Nia confirmed. And Damien signed off on this? Worse, she said. His initials are on the revision metadata. The next morning, the board meeting was electric with tension. Nia stood at the far end of the table, laptop open, notes in hand. Carlton introduced her firmly. Ms. Harper has identified a structural threat in the Waitress agreement, one that puts this company in financial jeopardy. Damien Crane, dressed in tailored gray and wearing his usual smug calm, leaned forward. With all due respect, Mr. Drake, Ms. Harper is not licensed counsel. This is dangerously close to unauthorized legal interpretation. Carlton held up a printout. Then explain your signature on this clause. Gasps rippled around the room. One board member raised a hand. Wait, Schedule Y? That wasn't in the briefings. Exactly, Nia said. It was added during final revisions and never disclosed during the last 2 read-throughs. Damien stiffened. This is a misunderstanding. Schedule Y is boilerplate. Then why does it reroute fault to us under 3 separate contingencies? Nia countered. Your own notes show you approved it 6 days before the board even saw the draft. Carlton's eyes never left Damien. You either missed it, or you let it through. Damien didn't answer. Carlton turned to the board. I'm suspending the Waitress deal pending independent legal review. He nodded toward Nia. And all future strategic contracts will pass through Ms. Harper's desk before they touch anyone else's. A murmur followed. One older member, silver-haired and steely-eyed, leaned in. Ms. Harper, how did you learn to spot something like this? Nia met her gaze calmly. When you grow up knowing one mistake can cost your whole future, you learn to read everything twice. The room went still. Even Damien didn't have a rebuttal. The vote passed unanimously. After the meeting, Carlton approached Nia in the corridor. You just saved us from a billion-dollar disaster. Again. You sure you still want me around? She asked. I'm starting to feel like a threat to the furniture. He chuckled. They'll adjust. You're not here to play nice. You're here to change the game. Nia nodded, gripping her folder. Then it's time to talk about what's next. I'm not just fixing bad contracts. I want to build a system that teaches people how to see these traps before they sign their names. Carlton blinked. You have something in mind? Yes, Nia said, her voice steady. I want to create a digital platform, a tool that helps everyday people understand legal documents in plain English. Leases, contracts, employment agreements, loans, everything. Carlton leaned against the glass wall, intrigued. You're talking about consumer legal literacy. Exactly, she said. Think of it like an AI-powered translator for the fine print. Something that stops people from being tricked because they didn't go to law school. He nodded slowly. And you want to build this from scratch? Nia's eyes locked with his. Not want. Need. I've been that person. Too many people still are. Within a week, Carlton allocated a development team, a modest budget, and a name, ClearClaws. But Nia insisted on controlling the content architecture and interface flow. If it doesn't speak like the people it's meant to protect, it'll fail, she told the UX team. She brought in a volunteer advisor from a local nonprofit. Interviewed janitors, delivery drivers, single parents, small business owners, anyone who ever signed a document they didn't fully understand. Each story sharpened her vision. ClearClaws wouldn't just decode contracts. It would protect futures. Damien Crane, still licking his wounds from the Waitress fallout, quietly began sowing doubt among the board. She's not trained. She doesn't have credentials. What happens when she makes a mistake? He whispered during calls. But Carlton stood firm. She's built more trust in this company than most people with bar licenses. Meanwhile, Nia worked 12-hour days and nights. Mockups, logic trees, feedback loops. She tested every module on her mother, who gave brutally honest opinions. This part still sounds like lawyer nonsense, she'd grumble. Nia rewrote it every time. After 2 months, ClearClaws was ready for internal beta. The demo was held in the 47th floor auditorium. Half the company showed up. Carlton introduced Nia with a simple statement. What you're about to see could redefine who gets to understand power, and who's kept in the dark. Nia stepped up, launched the interface, and walked them through a simulation. A renter facing an eviction notice. Step by step, the platform showed what to look for, what rights applied, and what next steps to take. By the end, the room was dead quiet. Then someone clapped. Then another. The room erupted in real applause, not polite but real. One executive from marketing whispered to his colleague, "This is actually useful." Another asked, "Can my niece try this?" Carlton stood beside Nia. "This isn't just a product," he said. "It's a mirror. And we need to start reflecting reality, not just profit margins. That afternoon, ClearClaws was greenlit for public pilot. Nia received a temporary title, Director of Legal Access Strategy, and her own dedicated team. It was more responsibility than she'd ever held. And exactly what she'd earned. ClearClaws launched quietly in 3 cities, Baltimore, Oakland, and St. Louis. Within 2 weeks, usage skyrocketed. Tenants avoided illegal evictions. Workers flagged predatory contract clauses. A community center in Oakland reported a 40% drop in payday loan applications after introducing the tool. But with attention came backlash. An industry blog ran a skeptical op-ed, "Legal advice by a waitress?" Nia read the headline without flinching. She'd expected it. What she didn't expect was the email from a prominent investor. "We're concerned about the optics. Perhaps the platform needs a co-leader with formal legal credentials." Carlton was furious. "You've built something revolutionary and they want to slap a suit on it so it looks more traditional?" Nia folded her arms. "This is exactly why ClearClaws exists. Because traditional leaves too many people out." Carlton exhaled. "You want me to handle it?" Nia shook her head. "No. I've got it." She asked for 10 minutes at the next board meeting. She didn't come with graphs or buzzwords. She came with user stories. A single mother in St. Louis who used ClearClaws to contest a wrongful garnishment. A high school graduate avoiding a shady for-profit college. She ended with a simple sentence, "They don't care where I went to school. They care that I showed them what no one else ever bothered to explain." The room was quiet. Then Ellen Bridges, the board's most senior member, nodded slowly. "Ms. Harper," she said. "Thank you. That's the clearest case for leadership I've heard in this room all year." The motion to add a co-leader was withdrawn. The investor sent a terse apology. And Nia? She got back to work, quietly, determined, and now unquestioned. 3 months later, ClearClaws hit 100,000 users. National media picked up the story. The woman who built legal access from a cafe booth. Nia laughed when she saw the headline. She still worked weekends at the cafe, less for the money, more to remember where she started. One evening, as she wiped down the same booth where Carlton first threw that contract at her, a young girl in a hoodie approached. "You the ClearClaws lady?" Nia smiled. "Depends, are you asking for feedback or a selfie?" The girl grinned shyly. "My aunt used it. Said you saved her house." Later that night, Nia walked home under the soft hum of city lights. Her phone buzzed. A message from Carlton. "White House wants to discuss ClearClaws pilot. You ready?" She stared at it for a moment, then typed back one word, "Always." But before she went to bed, she sat at her desk and opened a fresh notebook. On the first page she wrote, "Teach, protect, translate, empower. 4 pillars. 1 mission." She wasn't just building software. She was building a future where no one signed their rights away because the system assumed they wouldn't understand. The congressional hearing chamber was packed. Press, lobbyists, aides, everyone had come to see the woman who'd rewritten the rules from the outside. Nia Harper sat poised at the witness table, a sleek navy blazer over a borrowed blouse, tablet in hand, heart pounding beneath her calm exterior. Representative Hughes adjusted his mic. "Ms. Harper, some have raised concerns about ClearClaws being mistaken for legal counsel. How do you respond?" Nia didn't flinch. "We're not here to replace lawyers. We're here to give people the language they need to know when they need one." A younger congresswoman leaned in. "What inspired this?" Nia paused, then answered plainly. "Watching my mother sign a medical form she didn't understand. Then a lease. Then a loan. Watching her lose more than money. Dignity. Trust. All because she couldn't afford to translate the truth." That landed. The room shifted. Even the skeptical committee members softened. She continued, "Every clause has power. But most people never get to hold the flashlight. I'm just handing it to them." A soft murmur of agreement rippled behind her. Cameras flashed. She kept her eyes forward. After the hearing, reporters swarmed. One shouted, "Ms. Harper, what do you say to critics who question your credentials?" Nia turned, looked straight into the lens. "I say the people using ClearClaws don't care about degrees. They care about results. And those results are saving homes, wages, and futures." Later, as she rode the elevator back down to street level, Carlton stood beside her. "You just made half of Washington look slow." She exhaled. "That wasn't the goal." "Maybe not," he said. "But it's exactly what they needed." ClearClaws recognition exploded. Community centers asked for training kits. Schools requested student versions. A coalition of legal aid clinics offered pro bono partnerships. Meanwhile, a competing startup tried to copy the app's premise, with flashier branding and a celebrity spokesperson. But when they launched, users complained it was too confusing. One review read, "ClearClass actually speaks my language." The other one speaks MBA. Nia smiled when she saw it. "They can't fake what we built," she told her team, "because they never lived it." Carlton simply replied, "Then let's scale it before they catch up." Months passed. ClearClass expanded into 12 states, then 20. Nia's team grew from 5 to 50. She created internship programs for students without traditional backgrounds, hired coders from community colleges, made sure every update passed through live user feedback. The project had grown beyond her, yet never without her. She refused to let it. Late one evening she returned to the diner. Zadie was still working. "Look at you," Zadie said, arms folded mock stern. "Too big for us now?" Nia laughed, sliding into the old booth. "Never. I just build taller tables now." 2 days later, an unexpected email appeared in Nia's inbox. Subject: Annette Sloan. Her breath caught. Professor Sloan. The same woman who'd once called her the sharpest mind in Columbia's pre-law track, before Nia vanished without warning. She opened it slowly. "I watched your congressional testimony. You didn't just find your voice, Nia. You gave it to others. If you're open to it, your spot at Columbia still exists. This time on your terms." Nia sat back, stunned. She hadn't thought about returning. Not seriously. But the words stirred something deep, unfinished business. That weekend, she visited her mother's grave, a quiet plot on a small hill with wind chimes in the nearby trees. She knelt beside the headstone, fingers brushing the stone. "You told me not to let the world shrink me," she whispered. "So I didn't." She told her everything: ClearClass, Congress, Sloan's offer. "I don't need the degree to be who I am now. But maybe I want to finish it. Just to prove the system didn't get to erase me." A breeze moved gently through the leaves as if answering. She stood. Decision made. The next fall, Nia walked through Columbia's campus again. This time not as a scholarship girl fighting to stay afloat, but as a founder, a leader, and a full-circle story. Students whispered when she passed. One even approached her shyly. "You're the app lady, right?" Nia smiled. "No, I'm just a student now. Just like you." She returned to her old dorm building, now older, more polished, and strangely smaller than she remembered. She sat in the same lecture hall where she once took notes on contract law, now prepared to rewrite everything. During midterms, she flew to Atlanta for ClearClass' national rollout event. The team surprised her with a new nameplate for her office: Founder, Legal Architect, Game Changer. Carlton raised a toast. "You once told me you didn't want to be anyone's project. You're not. You're the blueprint." As they clinked glasses, she looked around. Developers, testers, beta users, high school interns, all gathered because one woman refused to accept invisibility. She had turned a contract insult into a platform. A billion-dollar mistake into a national movement. That night, Nia returned to the same booth at the cafe where it had all started. The table was clean, the lamp flickering faintly overhead. A young waitress approached, nerves visible. I think you're her," she stammered. "The one who built that app. My cousin used it to keep her car. She said you saved her life." Nia smiled, reached across the table, and took the girl's hand gently. "Tell her she saved herself. I just gave her the words." The girl beamed. Nia looked out the window at the city. "And this time," she whispered, "we're all going to understand the fine print." In the months that followed, Nia balanced school, national speaking events, and late-night design meetings with tireless resolve. She declined offers from major firms wanting to buy out ClearClass. "This isn't just code," she told one executive. "It's a promise." Instead, she launched a fellowship for first-generation students pursuing legal tech. They weren't required to have degrees, only vision. She made sure of that. Every lecture she gave, every interview she sat through, she returned to the same theme. Access shouldn't depend on appearance or pedigree. One afternoon, she visited a rural high school in Mississippi, where internet was spotty and textbooks were outdated. She brought flash drives loaded with ClearClass' offline version. After her workshop, a quiet boy approached, holding a crumpled rental contract. "My uncle's landlord raised the rent, said it's legal," he mumbled. Nia read the clause, knelt beside him, and explained how to push back. "You just saved his home," the boy whispered. "No," she said. "You did. I just showed you how." The school's counselor wept quietly from the doorway. Clear Claws rolled out in public libraries, youth shelters, even halfway houses. Some politicians pushed back, claiming it stirred unnecessary disruption. Nia smiled every time she read a headline like that. Good, she thought. Disruption means we're doing something right. She began mentoring others, encouraging them to find the hidden gaps in broken systems and fill them boldly. In interviews, she never talked about herself. She talked about Maya, Jerome, Tanika, Deshawn, real people Clear Claws helped before anyone knew her name. On the first anniversary of Clear Claws' launch, Carlton threw a private celebration at the same cafe where it all began. The owners saved their old booth. "You two changed the way I see people," he said, sliding over mugs of coffee. Nia glanced around at the new faces, junior developers, beta users, youth organizers. It no longer felt like her story alone. It belonged to every person who'd ever felt underestimated, overlooked, or told to stay in their place. And now they had a voice, and a tool that helped amplify it. As the evening wound down, Carlton raised his glass. To Nia Harper, who turned a page of fine print into a blueprint for justice. She laughed. To everyone who ever read something twice and dared to ask what it really meant. Then she looked directly at the youngest people in the room. You don't need permission to be powerful. Just information. And maybe a flashlight. Applause echoed softly beneath the cafe lights. Weeks later, Nia received a handwritten letter. No return address, just a Georgia postmark in elegant cursive. Inside it read, "My son was arrested for violating a parole clause none of us understood. Thanks to Clear Claws we fought it, and won. He's home. Thank you for giving people like us a fighting chance." Nia held the letter for a long time. She thought about her younger self, scraping by, drowning in jargon she was never supposed to master. Now those same lines of legalese were being turned into lifelines. She was later invited to speak at the Global Legal Tech Forum in Zurich. On stage, surrounded by CEOs, professors, and policy experts, Nia stood in her black blazer and denim sneakers, binder in hand. "People keep asking if Clear Claws is the future of law," she said. "But it's not about the future. It's about the people who never had a past written for them in the first place. We're not inventing justice. We're returning it to where it belongs." When she finished, even the sternest delegates rose to their feet. In a quiet moment back home, Nia sat on her apartment balcony watching the city breathe beneath her. Marcus leaned over the railing beside her, now taller, broader, applying to college. "You ever gonna take a break?" he asked. She smirked. "Maybe one day." He nudged her shoulder. "You built a tool people trust more than lawyers. You deserve to rest." She looked at him, really looked, and saw the legacy she'd never intended but had always hoped for. Belief passed forward, confidence earned, and knowledge shared. One Saturday she walked into a public library in Chicago, unannounced. On the computer screens, Clear Claws was running. A teen was showing it to her younger brother. "See, you click here if it's a school contract. This one explains loans. Don't just sign it, okay?" Nia watched from a distance, tears catching in the corners of her eyes. No spotlight. No applause. Just ordinary people using something extraordinary and making it their own. That was the real victory. Quiet, constant, and unshakable. As she left the library, she noticed a sign taped to the door. Clear Claws Workshop, Fridays at 4. She smiled, pulling her coat tight against the wind. This wasn't about her anymore. It never had been. It was about the people reclaiming what had been written without them in mind. And as long as that kept happening, her work would never really be done. Months later, Nia received an invitation, this time from Emory University. They wanted her to deliver the commencement address. Standing at the podium in front of hundreds of graduates, she didn't speak about success or fame. She spoke about the booth in the cafe. About being told she didn't belong. About reading what others ignored. "You don't need titles to lead," she told them. "You need clarity, conviction, and the courage to ask, why not me?" Her final words rang out like truth wrapped in thunder. Knowledge is power. But shared knowledge? That's revolution. After the ceremony, a young woman in a cap and gown approached her, eyes glistening. "I used your app. I was 16. It stopped my landlord from evicting us." She hesitated, then added, "Now I'm here. Pre-law." Nia hugged her tightly. "Then you're exactly where you're meant to be." The girl pulled back. "One day I want to do what you do." Nia smiled. "Then start now. Don't wait for permission. Just begin." And in that moment she saw it again, that ripple. One spark lighting another. That night, back home, Nia took off her blazer, made tea, and opened her inbox. 1,000 unread messages. Stories. Requests. Thank yous. She let out a breath and clicked open a blank document titled, Next Steps. She wasn't sure where the path would lead. But she knew one thing, it would be paved in plain language, shared wisdom, and hard-won light. If stories like this inspire you, hit that subscribe button. We bring you real voices, real change, and the fight for justice one story at a time. Don't just watch, be part of something bigger. Subscribe now and let's rewrite the narrative together.